All right, Event Horizon is the best Hellraiser movie since, I think, the second one. Yeah, finally getting done with this. Wait, what? Are you telling me Event Horizon is not a Hellraiser movie? So I'm not done with this damn franchise? Oh my god damn it! Event Horizon stars Sam Neill, Laurence Fishburne, and is directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. Jesus, this movie is so much like a Hellraiser movie. It's crazy. Even Paul W.S. Anderson pays homage to Hellraiser. There's a line in the movie, I'm looking at my computer right now, it says, "I have such wonderful things to show you." One of the characters actually says that line in this movie. And if we all know that Pinhead says, "I have such sights to show you." So, yeah. But first off, I want to give a huge thank you to Jason Miller. He actually hooked me up with that Blu-ray right there for Event Horizon, which is freaking awesome. We were talking Event Horizon on Killer Flicks, and then lo and behold, I checked my mail, and there's the Blu-ray. So, Jason Miller, thank you so much, man. That was awesome. I figured I wanted to get a review out, and I watched this last night with my son, which was awesome. It was his first time seeing it. And it was really kind of my first time seeing it because I don't remember seeing it. I saw it like 20 years ago. And quick little story, I remember this is when my kids were really little at the time. And so I didn't get much sleep. And I remember this movie just came out. I rented it and threw it in because I love good sci-fi horror. And this looked interesting. But nothing prepared me for what would unfold in that final act. And so while I'm watching this movie, not the movie's fault, but I fell asleep because I tended to do that quite a bit. Is tended a word? I did that quite a bit back then, and I did it for this movie. And when I woke up, the only thing I saw was like that last sequence, you know, where they're like in hell on the ship, and it's just freaky and one of the most like insane, horrific sequences I've ever seen, and it stayed with me. It was so scary that I was like, I don't want to watch that again. That was like too much. I'm afraid to go back to it. So I never did. But the movie always stayed with me. You know, there was always something there that made me interested in it. And I decided to check it out again. And thanks to Jason Miller, I did. And I had a really good time. You know, there's a lot of interesting things about this movie behind the scenes, which let's go ahead and get into that, actually. Paul W.S. Anderson, who directed like the Resident Evil franchises. He directed Mortal Kombat before this. The guy's been really hit and miss and miss and miss and miss. I mean, he's done a lot of crap. But I would say this is his best work by far. And reading behind the scenes, it was really interesting because the guy wanted to make a movie that was over 2 hours long and was a much darker, more grim film. And just watching it in its current state, can you imagine this movie being even like darker and creepier? I can't. But when you watch it, you can tell that there was some editing that was kind of rushed along the way. And the reason that happened, though, was because back then Paramount was actually in the process of filming Titanic. And they were waiting for Titanic to be done, and it was behind schedule. So, you know, they were putting all their money in Titanic, and they decided, hey, this movie, Event Horizon, we needed to get it out as quick as possible. We wanted to make some money on it. And that's what they did. They fast-tracked it, and the editing is what suffered the most. And so the end result was what we got. And I still like what we got. It's really good. It does have some problems. We'll get into that in the cons. But let's go ahead and start off with the plot. So Event Horizon, it's a ship. You got this crew. They are venturing out into space. The year is 2047. And in 2040, the Event Horizon, you know, went on its voyage. And it disappeared. And so in 2047, all of a sudden, it reappears outside of the orbit of Neptune. And so this crew of explorers, they go out to find it, to find out why it's suddenly reappeared, and to see what's going on. Our main characters here are Dr. Ware, played by Sam Neill. You might remember him from Jurassic Park. Dead Calm is one of my favorite movies of the 80s, and he's in that movie. Billy Zane is freaking amazing as Huey in that movie. I'm going to do a review for that one, but I don't mean to sidetrack here. And also, the captain of the ship is Laurence Fishburne. And then you got a whole bunch of other actors that fill, just kind of a motley crew of different personalities, different jobs. You got your engineer, you got your doctor, you got maybe even a cook in there, something like that. It's kind of like a military type of environment. You have all these different trades. So their job is to do their specific trade on the way out to find out what's going on with the event horizon. So once they get out to the event horizon, they get onto this ship and they see that some really crazy, messed up shit happened here. Everybody on the ship is dead, and there is just like, and unnaturalistically, like there's like blood all over the place. It literally looks like hell on a ship. And so for some reason, Dr. Ware is like really persistent on staying on this ship, figuring out what's going on. And at first you're like, is this guy freaking crazy? Why in the hell would anybody want to stay on that ship? I'd want to get the hell out of there, stat. But the reason, and by the way, this is going to be a spoiler review. This is an older movie. So if you haven't seen Event Horizon, check it out. It's good. Anyway, the reason he's doing this is because we find out later in the movie that his wife committed suicide. And so in his mind, his religion, she went to hell. And so he wanted to find her, and so he builds this portal, this gateway, which kind of reminds me of the Limit configuration, and that was done on purpose as an homage to Hellraiser. And one of the crew members actually gets sucked into the thing, and then when he comes back, he's like completely jacked up. And so really that's what this ship does, though. It's like the ship came alive. It's like a moving version of hell. It's like mobile hell. And so all these crew members that are on this ship, they start having all these crazy hallucinations. A lot of their personal demons come out and they have to deal with them. And so it's really like a psychological type of horror. And it's like a Hellraiser movie. It really feels like a Hellraiser movie, especially in that last act. Now, first off, talking about the characters in this movie, I gotta say, Laurence Fishburne really impressed the hell out of me in this movie. I didn't remember anything about this movie, but his performance in this, when you think of like leaders, there are certain actors, they have their strong points, Laurence Fishburne was made to serve as a leader, like in a military environment. This movie proves it. You might remember him from The Matrix. He was one of the best parts of The Matrix. He just owns that role of Morpheus. This is the same type thing. Like, I was completely on board with him. I bought him as that character, not as Laurence Fishburne. He brought that character to life. And throughout this whole thing, I was with him 100% of the way. And a lot of times, or most of the time actually, I'm like on his side. Like, I completely see what he's doing. He knows how to handle his crew. And it's really on his shoulders to keep everybody like in check, because everybody's going insane on this ship. Also, Sam Neill is really great in this. Now, in that last act, he literally becomes like a Cenobite. That's what he reminds me of, like a Cenobite. He completely loses his shit. And I love his character in this because he starts off as like a good guy. Like, you really think that he's a good guy with good intentions. He wants to find this ship, find out what's going on with it. But then as the layers are peeled back throughout the movie, you start not to trust him. And then by the end of the movie, he is like a complete evil type of person. But he has his personal reasons for that, A lot of times love can make you do some really crazy stuff you would never do. And that's what he does. That's his sole mission, is really to get back with his wife. But let me say, the biggest takeaway in this movie, I think, is just the violence. Paul Anderson wanted, like I said earlier, to create a world that is just like, not for everybody. Like, there is some really deep, dark, crazy stuff in this movie. If you watch this in a really dark room with the sound up, it can get under your skin, definitely. And that really surprised me for a big studio production. As a matter of fact, the test screenings of this turned off a lot of the audiences. They thought it was way too much. This was looking at an NC-17 rating, and I can totally see why. And this movie's going to remind you of like a lot of horror movies. 3 in particular. One is The Shining. There is a scene where there is a literal bloodbath on the ship, and that scene reminded me of The Shining. I've already mentioned Hellraiser, but then also there's an undeniable reference to Alien in this. It feels like Alien, especially once they're on the ship. You can tell that Paul Anderson is a huge fanatic of the first Alien. It just has that vibe to it. Now, let's get into the cons. And a lot of these cons aren't really the fault of the filmmaker, because this is a movie that is not a finished product in his mind. You know, it was out of his control. So I'm going to cut him some slack here. But the CGI, this is 1997, people, or somewhere around there. It's going to stick out like a sore thumb. It really is. A lot of the CGI is so dated, and I don't know if it was in finished form. Yeah, like it sticks out like a sore thumb, but it doesn't really like bother me, because the practical effects at the end are great, actually. Also, there is some shaky acting in this with some of the characters. Not enough to like take me out of the movie or anything. But behind the scenes, Paul Anderson said that he only was able to do like one rough edit, one pass. So he could have fixed a lot of those acting problems, because a lot of times actors, they're going to do more than one take on a specific movie. And I think he probably would have went back and found a better performance out of some of these actors. But the big takeaway you want from this is it's got some like insane violence, some imagery that will just give you nightmares galore, and it's one of the scariest sci-fi horror films I think out there. If I can give it anything, I will definitely give it that. I think this is definitely scarier than the first Alien. Not a better movie though, at all. But I'm still giving this a high purchase worthy, actually. Glad I own it now. Thank you so much, Jason Miller, for that. So anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on Event Horizon? So glad I finally watched this again. Really enjoyed it. Come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. On Fridays, we do Free For All Fridays. If you like what I'm doing, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.